At some point in your life, you stopped doing things. Not because you decided to, not because you chose to give them up. You just didn't do them anymore. And here's the strange part. You didn't even notice when it happened. Think back a few years. Maybe you used to travel somewhere new once a year. Maybe you used to call people just to talk. Maybe you used to try things. New restaurants, new hobbies, new conversations with strangers. And now? Now you have a route, a routine, a set of places you go, people you see, topics you talk about. It feels normal. It feels comfortable. It even feels like you. But here's the thing nobody tells you. That's not just a comfort zone. That's a shrinking world. And the shrinking is so slow, so quiet, so gradual, that by the time you feel it, it's already been happening for years. Here's what's actually going on inside your head. Your brain is an efficiency machine. Its entire job is to use less energy, not more. And one of the ways it conserves energy is by turning experiences into habits. The first time you drove a new road, you were completely present, noticing every turn, every sign, every landmark. The 100th time? You arrive and you don't even remember the drive. The brain said, "I've got this. I don't need to pay attention anymore." And it does that with everything. New situations require full cognitive presence. Old situations get automated, and automation feels like comfort. But here's what happens over time. Every time you face something uncertain, a new social situation, a new challenge, an unfamiliar experience, your brain runs a quick calculation. Is this worth the discomfort? And if you've spent a long time choosing comfort over uncertainty, your brain has been quietly updating its answer. No, probably not. Let's stay where it's safe. That's not weakness. That's just optimization. The problem is, it's optimizing for the wrong thing. It's optimizing for safety, not for life. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Because the comfort zone doesn't just stay the same size, it contracts. Imagine a circle. That circle is everything you're willing to do, try, feel, say. Every time you avoid something, even a small thing, that circle gets a little smaller. You avoid a difficult conversation. The circle shrinks. You turn down an invitation because it felt awkward. The circle shrinks. You stop eating somewhere new because your usual place is just easier. The circle shrinks. None of these feel like big decisions. None of them feel like they matter. But they compound. Psychologists call this avoidance reinforcement. When you avoid something uncomfortable, you feel immediate relief. That relief feels like a reward. And your brain, like a dog that just got a treat, learns. Avoidance equals sign good. Do more of that, so you avoid more. And the circle gets smaller. And the smaller it gets, the more everything outside it feels threatening. This is the trap. Because it's not that your life is getting harder. It's that your tolerance for difficulty is shrinking. And a person with a shrinking tolerance starts to see danger in things that are actually just unfamiliar. A new job feels terrifying. A hard conversation feels unbearable. Change, any change, feels like a threat. Not because those things are dangerous, but because the gap between where you are and where they are has grown too wide. Let's go one layer deeper. Because this isn't just about habits. When you stay inside your comfort zone, you're not just avoiding discomfort, you're protecting an identity. Think about it. The longer you stay in a certain zone, a certain job, a certain social circle, a certain way of being, the more that zone becomes who you are. And when something challenges that zone, it's not just uncomfortable, it feels like a threat to yourself. This is why people can react so strongly to change. Even change they chose. A new city, a new relationship, a new career. Objectively, these are just new situations. But emotionally, they feel like losing yourself. Because you've spent so long being a particular version of you inside a particular set of walls. That stepping outside feels like you're stepping into nothing. And here's the deepest part of this. You're not afraid of failing out there. You're afraid of finding out who you are when the familiar scaffolding is gone. The comfort zone isn't just protecting your peace. It's protecting your story about yourself. And stories don't like to be challenged. Here's the insight that changes everything. Discomfort is not a signal that you're doing something wrong. Discomfort is a signal that you're doing something new. And new is exactly where growth lives. But somewhere along the way, many of us learn to read discomfort as danger. Maybe from childhood. Maybe from failure. Maybe from being told to be careful too many times. And so now, when we feel that familiar tightness in the chest, that slight resistance before something unfamiliar, we call it anxiety. We call it not for me. We call it a sign that we should turn back. But what if it's actually just the feeling of expansion? Think about physical exercise. The burn in your muscles isn't telling you something is wrong. It's telling you something is changing, that you're pushing past what was already built. The discomfort of doing something new is the same thing. It's the feeling of your world expanding. And the opposite of that, the feeling of comfort, of ease, of things being automatic. That's not growth. That's maintenance. That's keeping what you already have. And there's nothing wrong with maintenance. But if maintenance is all you do, the world doesn't stay the same. It gets smaller, because life doesn't stop changing around you. And if you're not expanding, you're contracting by comparison. So here's where we land. You didn't choose to shrink your life. Nobody does. It happened the way all slow things happen. One small avoidance at a time. One, maybe later. One, I don't really feel like it. One, that's just not who I am anymore. And the hard truth is, the life you're living right now is shaped more by what you've avoided than what you've chosen. But here's the thing about the brain. It can be updated. Not with some massive life overhaul. Not with a motivational speech. Not with a challenge to do something terrifying every day. Just with one small thing. One small thing outside the circle. Once. Because the brain is watching. And every single time you do something uncomfortable and survive, every time you have the hard conversation and come out the other side, every time you go somewhere new and realize it wasn't that scary, the brain quietly revises its estimate. Maybe this is okay. Maybe the world outside is not as threatening as I thought. Maybe I can handle more than I've been allowing myself. And the circle grows. Not dramatically, not overnight, but it grows. And that's the whole game, really. Not to live without comfort, but to make sure your comfort zone is something you chose. Not something that happened to you while you were looking away. Because somewhere out there, there's a version of you that's been slowly waiting. In all the conversations you didn't have, in all the places you didn't go, in all the things you told yourself were just not your thing. That version of you is still possible. The circle can still grow. It just needs one small push.